All right, before we get started, I just want to tell you all what we're doing this week. So when I originally recorded the first set of videos for this channel, I didn't really record them right. I didn't record the audio as I should have, so we ended up never releasing the first 4 videos I ever recorded for this channel. But that has left a hole in my heart, and part of the reason I chose these 4 programs to be the first videos I ever watched for this channel is because I thought they did such a good job of summarizing each of the archive dive categories: yellow, green, blue, and red. So today I want to revisit these videos that I have watched once already, just for your guys' sake, just so that you guys can see all the thought that has gone behind these categories. So yeah, like I said, this is probably going to be the only time on this channel that we watch something that I have already watched before. But the only reason I watched any of these is because I already recorded videos for them that we weren't able to release. So today I'm revisiting all of these old videos to react to them once again and finally hopefully get to release them. So first off, the video that I thought embodied the yellow category the best is called The Ancient World, Egypt, Part 1 by Garner, 1951. So this is the very first video I ever watched for Archive Dive, is this right here. And I know I already remember some of it, but there are parts of it that I've already forgotten too. So hopefully we'll get a good viewing out of this. And if you noticed, I said The Ancient World, Egypt, Part 1. And when I first watched these, I didn't have Part 2 lined up. But since then, I've found Part 2. So if we get through this, next time, I think we'll watch Part 2 of this program. So that's my promise. I haven't seen that. I have seen this, but I haven't seen Part 2. So that's my promise for this video. If you enjoy watching this for a second time, next week we'll watch Part 2. So with that, I think let's just start. The Ancient World, Egypt, Part 1. I'm going to be repeating myself a lot because I've already watched this, but I think everything we're about to see is still valuable for you guys to see as well. So let's jump into it, right? All right, Garner presents. Shout out to Garner. I forget if he also narrates or not. I feel like, I don't know, it's gonna say if he does or not. Okay, The Ancient World, Egypt. Produced under the auspices of the Archaeological Institute of America and the American Research Center in Egypt. Interesting. So yeah, there's definitely, America's got its hands on this program, but that's interesting that there are, I don't know, institutes of archaeology of America working in Egypt. Especially so back then. When was this? 1951? Yeah, we already had an Archaeological Institute of America. Crazy. With the cooperation of the Egyptian government. See, that's a little wild of a credit to have to be seeing right here. It's just with the cooperation of the Egyptian. Like, I feel like in modern productions, you don't see this as much. Like, if I wanted to make a YouTube video about Egypt, I would just go there with my camera and I would not bother thanking the Egyptian government. Of course, this is a bit bigger of a production than a YouTube channel, I'm just saying. Gosh, the Harmon Foundation, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Brooklyn Museum, and the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. All right, I think I've been to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. If it's the one in New York, then I definitely have been to that one. But interesting, just more museums, more foundations. I know this is like the least interesting part for everyone. I just like giving credit where credit's due. Dang, original music score by Menelaus Palladios. All right, so this guy must be Greek or something. So Menelaus Palladios. All right, so if I got any notes on the score, I got it directed specifically to Menelaus. Performed by the Athens Symphony Orchestra under the direction of the composer. Narrated by Michael Caine. I don't think that's the same Michael Caine I'm thinking of. No, I think it's spelled differently. All right, we'll just keep that in mind. Whoever's talking is Michael Caine. I think we'll know pretty fast if it's the Michael Caine I'm thinking of, actually. Wow, okay, written, photographed, and directed by Garner. So we got to think about the writing, the photography, and just all the direction in general being one person. That's interesting. That's something that I don't think I remembered on my first watch of this. I kept saying, oh man, who wrote this? Who photographed this? As if it didn't just tell me right at the beginning. Yeah, I'm also sparing you guys a lot of very early learning for me figuring out how to actually react to content like this. Wow, just like 5 to 10 seconds of a blank image and music playing. Again, I'm a big fan of the music already, but like this old editing style is really throwing me for a loop already. Like straight up, we've been looking at nothing but blackness for several seconds now. Yeah, like at least 10 or 15 seconds of black with nothing happening on screen. Again, that's just the old style, but I think that's funny. Such a strong editing choice. Okay, and our first view is of some clouds on a hill. All right. This doesn't feel particularly Egypt so far, but let's let it cook. Oh no, this isn't Egypt. I remember this. All right, so this isn't ancient Egypt. This is actually the Ruwenzori Mountains. If you don't know, from my channel, Atlas Pro, I made a whole video about the Ruwenzori Mountains and how they're like sort of this mystical source of the waters of the Nile, pretty much. I guess they are legitimately the source. People thought that they were a lot bigger. They spent a lot of time searching for these mountains. These are like really legendary mountains, especially in regards to like ancient Egypt. Like the ancient Egyptians did not understand really exactly where their water came from. So these mountains themselves were like shrouded in such legend and mystery back then. At least I hope that's what we're starting with. That's all I can imagine we're looking at right now. But these are some really amazing mountains. The only real mountain range in all of Africa, pretty much. So it's a good place to start talking about ancient Egypt too, because this is pretty much where the meltwaters for the Nile start. So this is a good way to start talking about ancient Egypt. It is a little counterintuitive, though, when you think that you're getting into a documentary about Egypt and all you do is spend like a full minute looking at clouds rising over mountains. It's just, there is a little inconsistency in the tone, I guess, or in the message, but this, again, still a very good place to start. If I had to do this, if I had to make a documentary about ancient Egypt, I would be starting in the same exact place, because there is no other way to start than with the start of the Nile itself. So, good place to start. I'm just laughing at how long it's taken us to actually get to the point of narration. And if my memory serves me, we got a lot longer to go, too. Some great photography, though. Some great footage, like these clouds drifting off these mountains. I really hope Ray Garner went to these mountains himself to get this footage. I mean, I have to imagine he did. This must have been an amazing trip for him. It's good footage. It's just a lot. We're on our like second image of like a whole bunch that are coming, trust me. Yeah, the first time I watched this, I had no preparation for how long it would take us to get to the actual storyline, but here we go. Yeah, I really got to stop talking because I know this is going to take so long for us to get to. Again, great footage. Is he in a helicopter or is he on top of a mountain being passed up by these clouds? I'm just so curious about Ray Garner's experience making this. Must have been a dream come true for Ray Garner to make this, though. And these are some wild mountains, too. Like, these are some very lesser known mountains within the world. So getting to see footage of them this long ago, oh my God, it's pretty cool. Like you can't really see the vegetation that grows here, but there is a very unique sort of flora and fauna, I guess, surrounding these mountains. So these are such cool places to explore. I want to go here so bad. But again, that's why Ray Garner's so lucky that he got to do this. These are just such great shots. All of these, like they look like time-lapse shots, but they're not. They're just real time. That's how fast the clouds move, that high up sort of shots. Yeah, this is like the last thing you would ever expect to see in a documentary about Egypt. But I guess, again, this is the ice that fuels the Nile, or at least that's the claim that they're going to make. And the funny thing about this is that the glaciers atop the Ruwenzori Mountains are rapidly melting. So if you went to this same exact mountain today, you would probably find maybe half the amount of ice, probably less. You would probably find like a little ice at the top of this peak now, but like nowhere else. It's wild to think that this is a preservation not only of our understanding of ancient history, but this is a preservation of actually like the state of the world or the state of these mountains at this time. Like these mountains do not look like this anymore. So what we're seeing here is an actual preservation of Earth's past. Earth's climate past is preserved in this film because we get to see these mountains glaciated like they won't ever be again in our lifetimes. It's just, it is wild. Oh, there we go. The narration finally kicked in. We're only 2.5 minutes into this program and the narration is finally going.
This is the story of civilization. This is the story of Egypt.
Yeah, again, pretty ironic to say that in snow-capped mountains that we're talking about Egypt. But again, if you know what we're talking about, the Ruwenzori Mountains, you'll know how important this is to the story. But man, do they like drawing it out of us. Like, holy moly, we're almost at the 3-minute mark and we're barely even touched on these mountains yet. You know, shout out to Menelaus with this score, though. He really is doing his most. And freaking yeah, shout out to Garner again for getting all these shots. That is my theory for why this is taking so long. It's not because he wanted to set a mood or anything, but because he got so many good shots of these mountains and their clouds that he just wanted to include it all. I'm pretty sure that's the reason we spent 3 minutes watching these clouds over these mountains, is because he just got so much good footage he wanted to use of them. And you know what? I can't even blame him. I would have done the same thing. Oh man, you can sort of see the interesting vegetation. Again, it's tough, but it's like the Afro-Alpine vegetation system here is just unlike any other in the world.
It begins in the legendary Mountains of the Moon.
Yeah, the Mountains of the Moon. This is what they used to think of them as.
In equatorial Africa, thousands of miles to the south of the thirsty land of Egypt.
To the thirsty land of Egypt. Again, they are using such grand language to describe this place. I mean, I guess of all the places that deserve grand language, ancient Egypt is pretty high up there, but it's funny to hear the way they address Egypt back in these old sort of films.
For Egypt is the Nile, and the Nile is Egypt.
Yeah, that's a pretty pertinent observation, is that Egypt is the Nile and the Nile is Egypt, which again is why we're spending so much time in the mountains thousands away from the Nile Delta at the beginning of this, is just to establish more so than Egypt itself, the Nile, right? We're looking at these mountains not for Egypt, but for the Nile itself, for the formation of these waters that will go on to Egypt and bring, all sorts of whatever. Obviously, most of the water from the Nile doesn't actually come from the Ruwenzoris. They come from Lake Tana in Ethiopia, but maybe like 10% of the water in the Nile comes from these mountains, and they are like the furthest away mountains from the Nile's mouth. So, it's sort of fair to say the Nile starts here, but it's also arguable whether or not it actually does. But either way, the Nile is Egypt, Egypt is the Nile. That's the important lesson here. Important to know that these are the only glaciers that feed the Nile, though. That is why people think of them as the source of the Nile, because no other ice feeds into the River Nile anywhere else in Africa, except here.
Here the mighty Queen of Rivers is born.
See, Queen of Rivers, again, another use of language that I just don't think anyone would use nowadays. Like, I don't know why it's the Queen of Rivers. Is the Amazon the king, or is the Mississippi the king? I'm curious now. If the Nile's the Queen of Rivers, who's the king? Again, some good shots, though. Garner knew what he was doing because he got all of these shots and they all help tell a story. Like, he really did know what he was doing. I wonder, these cameras seem almost handheld. I don't think they are. They must be on a tripod, but it seems like, I don't know, it does seem like only one person is here filming all of this. Like, was Ray Garner alone in these mountains, or did he have like a whole troop with him? He must have had like guides or something at the very least. It's funny to imagine just one man filming all this in the middle of nowhere, Africa. Yeah, see, this is a more similar sight to what you'd see today. All this melting taking place here, that is what the Ruwenzori's are like now. This is incredible, though, that he has footage of, like, the actual meltwaters, like the very instant that the water actually enters the river Nile for the first time. Like, those are some good shots. Again, shout out to Ray Garner for getting these shots. Like, he really is telling a story through the photography, which is just impressive knowing that he also wrote and directed everything as well. Ray Garner would have made a good YouTuber. Again, some great music that's playing too. I really hope none of this is going to be like copyright stricken, but I really hope I get to include all this music because it really does help the program itself too. I feel like half of the story has been told through the music alone so far, but that's probably just because there hasn't really been any narration. We're like 4 minutes in, by the way. 4 minutes in and we haven't even left the Ruwenzori Mountains. This does look like an incredibly lush place. I wish the resolution on this program was just a little better so that you could actually see like the vegetation that's growing here, because it is some really interesting trees that grow here. You can't really see it, you can barely make it out, but I know they're there, and that's why I want to talk about them. But again, we're talking about ancient Egypt here. We're trying our hardest to get out of these mountains as fast as possible. Yeah, this is maybe a better shot to see these trees and everything. Very interesting fauna or flora that's out here. And then the water just comes gushing down these mountains. That's why people think the Ruwenzoris are like the source, is because even during the summer, even at the height of the dry season, water still flows off of these glaciers. So it kind of is like, so it sort of is the only permanent source of water that the River Nile has. I mean, that's debatable as well, but at least, you know, colloquially, that's the case. Yeah, again, some more of these crazy trees that they have on these mountains. You know, it's so long ago since I actually did research on these that I forgot their name, but I know they're very interesting trees. You know, you don't even find these in like the African lowlands. Like you only find these trees up here in the highlands of the Ruwenzoris. Maybe at like the top of Kilimanjaro too. But yeah, look at this valley. Look at this. Look at these weird trees in the distance. It really is like an alien landscape almost. And you can tell, again, like the reason we're watching all this footage is not because these trees pertain to ancient Egypt, like at all. It's because Ray Garner got footage of them that he wanted to use in his program, you know? Like that's why we're spending so much time on all these, because they are just such wild spectacles to see. And Ray Garner obviously wanted to share them, even if it didn't really make sense to. But you know what? Let's keep going. Again, so many shots of these weird trees, and you know, I'm an appreciator of it. I love it, but you know, for somebody who wanted nothing but ancient Egypt in this program, it is getting distracted itself. I'm getting distracted by it, and the director himself, Ray Garner, is also getting distracted by it. Like those trees had nothing to do with Egypt. We were just looking at them because they were cool. But now we're back to the river again. So let's stay on the River Nile now. Again, just another stretch of like 10 seconds where nothing happened except the visuals on screen. You know what? I appreciate the music playing at least, but I feel like this is kind of dead air at this moment. Like we need something happening. That would be my note. If I were the producer advising Ray Garner on how to cut this, I'd say maybe we could take out that water splashing scene, or at least make it shorter.
From many sources, the waters gather and flow northward. Thousands of miles out of Uganda through the...
So that's the important thing too, is that these waters start in Uganda, which it seems pretty obvious if you actually know the Nile, but if not, Uganda seems like a very random place for the Nile to start, I guess.
And into...
All right, now we're in it. Now we're actually in the Nile, like the sand dunes Nile.
The parched land of Egypt.
The parched land of Egypt. Again, the language they use is just so much better than mine. Parched land. Like, so good, you know? Like, who... I guess Ray came up with that too, didn't he? He wrote this and directed it. So it's... Oh, man. I'm sad this is not his voice, too. I'm sad this is the voice of Michael Caine and not Ray Garner. Because I want to know. I want to know, like, how Ray got all this stuff done. Like, how is he good at writing and filming like this? I want to know who Ray is. There is something about this landscape, though. The desert mountains and the lush riverbanks, it seems so idyllic in, like, the ancient human form, you know? Like, I can imagine being, like, an ancient person coming across this and being like, you know what? This is, like, the best place on earth. Like, I'm just gonna stay here forever, you know? Like, you really totally understand why the Nile attracted so many people back in the day.
Just as the mighty Nile ebbs and flows with the changing seasons.
And I wonder if it still looks like this. I fear that it's all become like, you know, agricultural land, but I have to imagine 1950, most of the farming land had already been cleared, you know, like they've been farming this place for like 4, 5, 6,000 years at this point. So if it made it through that, I think it's in the clear. I think this might still be here in this state to this day. I could be wrong. There might be like roads here now or something, but I really hope there are parts of the Nile that still look like this, that are still like ancient Egypt right there for you. Because the site that we're seeing now really is just no different than what the ancient Egyptians would have seen as well.
So has the history of the human race risen and fallen along its back.
Dude, is this Abu Simbel? Is it? It looks like it. Oh yeah, it totally is. No way. Dude, I just mentioned that the other day. When did I mention that? Oh, I mentioned that in the very last video, actually. The last red one, the Israel and the Arab states, I think I mentioned Abu Simbel because we were learning about Nasser, but that's cool. Oh wait, so I'm curious, is this Abu Simbel before it was moved or after? It's 1951. I think this might be before the Aswan High Dam. I could be wrong about that. Maybe they make a mention of it, but this might be the Abu Simbel in its original resting ground. Or in its original site, I should say. Because they cut up this whole statue. They broke it into blocks and they moved it because they were flooding the Lake Nasser pretty much. And they wanted to preserve this site. So they cut it all up and they reassembled it somewhere else. So you can still see this monument today. It's just not where it originally was. And it has all these lines through it where they cut it out, or where they cut it up. But I'm curious if this was before that or after. Obviously from the footage you can see that these are some awesome monuments. Like this is probably my favorite like Egyptian monument, Abu Simbel. Like it looks intact too. I don't see any lines going through it that would suggest that they cut it up and moved it. So this might be the original Abu Simbel that we're looking at right here. It might not be again. Oh, maybe it kind of looks like there's a line there actually. I don't know. Either way, it's pretty cool. All right, we just hit the 6-minute mark and we're still doing like high drama editing style. So, okay, there we go. Holy moly.
Before the dawn of recorded history, much of North Africa was a green and verdant land.
Oh wow, we're talking about the Green Sahara now. See, this is something that I didn't even know they knew back then, is that the Sahara was actually green right around when ancient Egypt was starting. This is something else that I've made at least 2 videos about, maybe more honestly, but I've definitely talked about the humid African period or the Green Sahara period. So it's really cool to actually be hearing about it from this as well.
The sun smiled down, and then...
See how the sun smiled down. Again, the language they use for this is just so different than what I would use.
Came the change. The great glacier in Europe receded to the north. The sun became an angry god.
The sun became an angry god. You know, that is a good, like, segue into the ancient Egyptian belief system. I wonder if that's what they're trying to do. Again, it is interesting that they even established that historical context for us, though, that there was a Green Sahara and then the Sahara heated up. I've never even thought about what that would cause people to believe about the sun, to see, like, green pastures just dried out and desertified. Like, you know what? That is good commentary. That is actually a good connection, a good line that they just drew between the drying up of the Green Sahara and sun worship. See, you think there's not going to be any sort of good observations made from these, but you know what? These people were just as smart as we were.
Blistering hot winds swept across the land, killing the vegetation.
But you know, these people are just as smart as we are. So you know what? There are some good things in here. There is some good information in here.
No longer did the life-giving rain fall from the heavens.
You know, it's funny because if I didn't know about the African human period, I would be like really confused about what's going on right now. It's only because I already understand that there was greenery here and then it gradually disappeared. If I didn't know that, I would be like, what are we talking about right now?
Under the whiplash of the sun,
Yeah, go watch my videos on the African human period if you're confused like that right now.
the very earth recoiled. For thousands and thousands of years, the sun beat down and blistered the earth, drying up the watercourses, changing a verdant land into a barren wilderness.
Again, this is a good shot too. Is this like a real shot? Like, this looks so big. Like, he must be so far away or something. Like, I don't know. Something about this shot just seems like off to me scale-wise. Is this a real shot, or is this like, this looks like a miniature, you know? Like, this looks like a shot from like Star Wars or something, like the original Star Wars. Like, this dust, it doesn't look like it's the right size. But it looks real. It looks so totally real at the same time. This is just a crazy shot, I guess. Again, shout out to Ray Garner for getting all these shots. It looks like unbelievable. I don't know. Am I the only one who thinks this shot in particular looks like a miniature? And that's it. That's all we get from that shot. See, that's the thing. Is like, why would you bother making a miniature for that shot? It just looks so weird. I don't know. Very interesting shot. Again, I think Ray Garner just got like a lot of footage of like sand rolling over the sand dunes and he wanted to include it. And that's why we're going to watch like another minute-long montage of just sand over sand dunes. Like, how do you not include this shot, you know? Like, you know what? It's fair for Ray Garner. I don't blame him at all for doing this, especially since he was the photographer and the editor. Like, he had the full ability to make this choice, and he did. Again, that's a good shot. Just to have an action shot like that of the sand pouring over the, you know, dune or whatever. It's just like, he must have waited so long, or he must have like known that he wanted that shot in order to have gotten it. It's impressive photography for sure. Again, 1951, this guy's carrying around like a huge film camera. I can't even imagine like how heavy it is and like how much film he has to carry around too. And for him to get shots like this alone, I don't know, it's impressive.
People were nomads.
Okay, so now we're just, we're totally over the sand part of this video, and now we're looking at like the early Neolithic tools of the, I guess, ancient Egypt.
People were nomads and hunters who once lived.
These are really cool though. I never really thought about like, I don't know, the earliest days of Egypt when they still used like stone tools like this. But that is fair, as there was a period in history where people were just starting to figure out like civilization for the first time even.
In a great green land, now dying under the impact of the sun and the wind. Man could no longer live in this sterile land.
Man, how are they doing this sand effect? Are they blowing sand on it? This is like, it's pretty impressive, whatever it is. It's just like, I'm curious how they got this effect on this sand like this.
Primitive implements were buried.
'Cause it looks like it's jumping around. It looks like they're playing like a big speaker into it or something, like the way the sand is moving. I'm so curious. Like the technique, it's so extra for the time, you know?
Under the shifting sands.
I guess the shifting sands, he just said that. Maybe that's what they were trying to replicate, is shifting sands. Again, how hard would it be to keep like human footprints off of these sand dunes for long enough for you to get shots of just the animal footprints in the sand? It's just a lot of effort went into this that I'm trying to appreciate.
The ordeal was for the animals as well as mankind. and they too wandered across the desert in their dumb misery.
See, again, this is a fantastic shot. Did Ray just get this shot, or did he know that he wanted a shot of animal tracks going into the desert? Because even if he wanted this shot, there's no way to make it without just it being luckily there for you. You know, like you can't make these fake footprints without leaving your own footprints in the sand. So it's just like he either got really lucky with this shot or he like really planned it out. I don't know which one. I'm just over here sitting in awe that he even got it in the first place. Like, what a great shot, a tilt up to like see how far these tracks go. And I bet if the resolution was better, you'd be able to see them go even further. It's just, that was a good shot. Dude, talk about feeling like it's Star Wars or something, though. This really does feel like an alien planet. I know it's just the desert. It's such a wild environment. We still haven't even gotten to like ancient Egypt at all yet, but it's still interesting landscape shots.
Here and there, a few small pools remained.
Dang, this is crazy. I can barely see it, but there is a little like oasis right here. See, that's like, I don't know. I've always been so curious about desert oases. I also made a whole video about desert oases, so it might be that, but it's just like, what sort of life is here? You know, I'm so curious what life would be like if all you did was live in this one little oasis valley in the desert. It looks so like idyllic in a certain way.
Enough to sustain life, but only for a short time.
Again, so now we're looking at human footprints in the sand, but how do you get these without, I don't know. So again, now we're looking at human footprints in the sand, but where did the human who made these go? Like, we can't see them anywhere, but they clearly went somewhere. Again, that's just like the magic of filmmaking that Ray thought about before he got these shots. Like, Ray knew that he wanted the image of human footsteps going off into the desert, but he also knew that he didn't want a person just hanging out in the back of his shot. So he must have figured out some way to get them out of the shot. Again, it's impressive, especially for 1951. And also to get these birds flying around like this, like, again, you can't like plan where the birds are going to be flying. So the fact that he got this tilt up shot with these birds flying around, it's so perfect. Good for you, Ray, man. Good for you. And that's the craziest part, is now they're flying away. They were circling, he tilted up, and now they flew away, as if they took orders from the director, you know? Like, it's just, what a crazy shot. Oh, but now they're coming back. See, that's also the thing, is you can't control what the animals do, so sometimes they also just mess up. Though I bet Ray was happy with this shot regardless. Dude, more just panoramas of the desert, though. Holy moly, are we taking our time. We're 9 minutes in. We're more than 9 minutes in. We haven't even gotten to ancient Egypt yet.
In all this once lovely land, there now remained only a few scattered oases where life could still go on.
See, this looks awesome though, an oasis. Like, oh man, what I wouldn't do to just live on my own oasis somewhere like this. Like, I don't know if this is appealing to anyone else. Like, I know it's still in the middle of the desert, but just seeing like trees like this in the desert would like bring me such joy in life, I think. Again, some amazing photography. I don't know how much it's actually adding to the overall presentation, but I am definitely enjoying these sights.
The nomad and the hunter wandered across the wasteland, seeking a better place to live. He joined with others of his kind and fought.
Is Ray making these footsteps himself in order to tell the story that he's trying to tell, or is he actually getting like wanderers, or I guess hunter-gatherer, Bedouin tribes people's footsteps, you know? Like, are these real footsteps, or is this movie magic footsteps, you know? Like, I just can't tell. It just seems so hard to do all this by yourself. Like, again, shout out to Ray.
With them and against them for survival.
Dang, all right, so here's an actual good view of the Nile. This is what I imagine it still looks like to this day. It's just like blazing hot sand, a thin strip of green, and then like cool blue on the river. Man, like, yeah, what I wouldn't do to just live here too.
The great valley of the Nile became his homeland. For where its magic waters touched the barren desert lay a green and fertile land.
It really is wild how, like, adjacent to the river these farms are. Like, it's just one field and then, like, sand, you know? Like, it's not any more than that. I really hope it still looks like this here, too. I'm really terrified of the thought that there's, like, a highway just running right next to the river now. Because this really is, like, views of ancient Egypt for sure. Like, this is exactly how it would have looked like 4,000 years ago. Can anyone figure out where exactly on the Nile this is? I doubt there's still this little island here in this shape, but I wonder if there are enough clues to figure out actually where exactly it is.
Wanderer became a settled...
Probably not. That's probably a bit too big of an ask, right? To figure out where this 1951 section of the Nile is.
Agriculturalist. And an artist.
Oh, wow. See, like, this is actually what I was hoping we'd get into, is, like, this is, like, the very earliest art of ancient Egypt. It's, like, this doesn't have, like, the same iconography as, like, later Egyptian art did. It just, like, it's very, very early days Egyptian art, which makes this even so much more special, you know?
He saw beauty about him and worked his impressions into all of the things.
Like, it's so amazing that we have preserved pots with all this art on it, too. It really just, these tell so many stories. Like, such a story and so many of them at the same time.
Things he made and used. Few records remain of this period.
And just the fact that, like, ancient people had such ornate objects back then, too. Like, I don't even have a jar this fancy.
But man laid the foundations of a great civilization. Local governments arose.
Oh man, what are we looking at now? I don't even recognize this from, like, Egyptian history. This is some really deep stuff, I think.
And were eventually unified into two kingdoms.
Like, who drew all this? Is this an actual, like, Egyptian illustration, or is this just, like, for our purposes?
The Upper Egypt of the Nile Valley, the Lower Egypt of the Delta.
Yeah, I can't tell if those were real or not. Oh, I know this thing. Oh man, what's his name? Oh, I know this thing though. I learned about this in art history class in college. So if you turn this around, there are going to be two snakes that, like, weave into each other, and there's a hole in the middle. Oh, it's like the standard of somebody. You know, it makes it even worse that I've already watched this and I still can't remember his name. Oh man, what is it? It's like the standard. It's not Djoser. It's... I know what we're talking about here. This is like the standard of the king, though. It's like him illustrating that he is in power finally. You know, it's like it's the merging of Upper and Lower Egypt. This is a very notable piece of art within the ancient Egyptian history. It really is. I can't believe I'm blanking on the name, though. But I know this is one of the most important pieces of ancient Egyptian art. Narmer, that's what it is. Yes, all right, it's the standard of Narmer.
The king of Upper Egypt conquers the kingdom of the Delta.
Yes, and that's the whole point of this standard, is to illustrate that he's in control of all of Egypt now. So pretty much this one rock is like the foundation of, like, all of ancient Egypt, pretty much.
The falcon brings captive the people of the papyrus swamps.
See, so interesting. The falcon brings captive the people of the papyrus swamps. So if Narmer came from Upper Egypt, that means he came from not the Nile, just the river part. So yeah, he conquered all the people who lived in the Delta. That's wild. That's wild just because it seems so much harder to do that, because it seems like there were so many more people in the Delta than there were in the river itself. But I don't know. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's the back. Here's the two, I guess they weren't snakes. They're like serpent-headed beasts or something, chimera of some sort.
Thus, over 3,000 years before Christ.
3,000 years before Christ. So this is like 5,000 years old now?
Narmer becomes the first pharaoh of Egypt, ruler of the two lands.
See, and it's so wild that we just have this standard, this whole, like, physical evidence of this happening 5,000 years ago. It's wild. And the craftsmanship that went into this old of an object too. Like, you can imagine them having good craftsmen after like 1,000 years of civilization. But no, they had craftsmen this good at the very start of their civilization. That's the wildest part, I think. Like, this stone isn't the culmination of like thousands of years of culture. It's like the beginning of thousands of years of culture, you know? Man, I kind of wish we learned more about that, though. I remember learning a lot more about that standard in art history class, but you know what? I guess we're breezing through these pretty fast anyway. But you know, the fact that we looked at it at all tells us that this is like a pretty good summary of Egyptian history. Oh, and now we got the step pyramid. Is that Djoser's step pyramid? It's at Saqqara, right? That's the site with the step pyramid, Saqqara.
Centuries pass.
I don't know if it was Djoser. Again, I kind of get all the pharaohs' names mixed up. To me, Djoser was like the first pharaoh. I know Narmer is like a semi-mythical character. I always thought Djoser was the first pharaoh, though. I don't know if this is Djoser's pyramid or not, though.
Here on the edge of the desert, above the Nile at Saqqara, rises the step pyramid, the oldest standing...
Yeah, the step pyramid, the very first one that we know about.
...stone structure on the face of the earth. And here, the architect, Imhotep, wrought a poem in limestone.
Dang, Imhotep wrought a poem in limestone? That's wild. I didn't know that we had any actual like evidence of Imhotep, because like, I don't know, my perception is that Imhotep is also like this semi-legendary figure within Egyptian history. I've heard of Imhotep so many times. I thought he was the architect behind the Great Pyramid, not the architect behind the first pyramid. But again, I could just be wrong about that. But I feel like the name Imhotep was used for so much longer than just one man's lifetime. I feel like Imhotep was used over and over again for architects.
A great funerary temple surrounding the pyramid to serve as the eternal home of King Djoser of the third
It is King Djoser. Okay.
Dynasty.
Thanks. So it's crazy that we have like an actual carved countenance of Djoser. Like, I know this probably doesn't look exactly like him by any means, but it had to have looked like a little like him, right? Like, you have to imagine that they wouldn't have purposefully made this inaccurate. So it's wild that we get to see at least something of what the first, man who built the first pyramid looked like. It's wild.
This earliest use of dressed stone on a large scale is evidence of proud craftsmanship, of a race of artisans.
Yeah, like, look how big these structures were already. Like, Djoser's first pyramid, and they were already building like these huge temples out of stone. Like, it really is impressive, to say the least, to learn about like the ancient Egyptian like capacity for architecture and construction.
Who worked with loving care to create a lasting tribute to their gods. Slaves could not have raised this temple, for each stone had to be cut by skilled hands, an exacting task. For no more.
Yeah, again, that's like that's the unthought of aspect of this all. Is like, there's the carvings, which seem like very difficult, but then there's just the plain basic bricks that they built this place out of that are also perfectly square, perfectly flat, perfectly right angles. It's like, oh my God, it's such a complex endeavor to create something like this. It's so amazing that they did it like 5,000 or 6,000 years ago.
Mortar of any kind was used.
Before anything like this had ever even been made before. Like, they didn't have anything to go on. They didn't have anything to like be inspired by. Like, these people were just building temples for the first time ever and doing it like better than anyone's ever done it ever since.
In these distant times, they knew the beauty.
These are some funny looking snakes, though, I will say. They're kind of cute like this.
Of the play of sunlight and shadow on
Dang, I didn't realize there were all these ruins right next to the step pyramid, though. I thought the step pyramid was kind of alone, but I guess we have like this huge columns, this huge like temple almost.
Cluttered surfaces.
I guess that's what it is. It's a temple right next to the pyramid. That makes sense. I didn't know that there was this temple right here.
And here, over 2,000 years before the golden age of Greece, Imhotep designed the fluted column.
Again, is this true? Did Imhotep invent the fluted column? I feel like, again, that's part of the semi-legendary nature of Imhotep, is that they just attribute any architectural advancement ever to Imhotep. It feels like one person couldn't have invented all this stuff and still be remembered for it, but maybe I'm wrong.
Small wonder that the Greeks worshipped Imhotep as a god.
That's a funny little detail to include, that the Greeks worshipped Imhotep as a god. So that's also giving in to the partially legendary nature of Imhotep, or at the very least, if he was a real person, he soon became a legendary figure to people from other places like Greece. Like that's probably why we have such good record of this one ancient Egyptian architect, is because he's the one that became known by the ancient Greeks, and from there was just passed on through the ages, through histories and whatnot. So it's interesting to think about the legends surrounding Imhotep, not even a pharaoh, just an architect. Like he became a legendary person of his own, just for all the crazy architecture that I guess he was like the first person to ever really even conceive of. Like if it's true, if he really invented the fluted column, again, like nobody had ever done that before, Like it seems so simple, but it's like, well, no one had ever done it before. I hope that's true though. I hope Imhotep did design the first pyramid and invented fluted columns. I think that would just be a funny, like, double whammy.
Throughout the temple, details suggest earlier primitive construction. A wooden...
See, that's what's even more wild, is that these were built on, like, ancient sites to them, Like, this was an old graveyard for some even more ancient peoples. It's just like, that's more mind-blowing than anything else here, is that these are not even, like, the oldest ruins on the site.
Door translated into stone swings forever open on its immovable stone hinge.
Dang, is that real? Did they have a huge stone door that was just on a stone door hinge? That's interesting.
This exquisite structure was erected 4,700 years ago.
4,700 years ago, almost 5,000 years. That is wild. Like, the fact that they're still standing, the fact that these walls are still flat, it's just, oh my gosh, it is so impressive. It's like, I really do lack the language to appreciate just how amazing it is that these are real structures built by real people almost 5,000 years ago. It's just, I don't know, it is amazing. This is why learning about ancient Egypt specifically is so amazing.
At a time when the peoples of Europe dwelt in primitive darkness.
Dang, I like how they always have to bring it back to comparing it to Europe. While Europeans lived in primitive darkness, this is what was going on in Egypt, which I guess is fair. It's just like, this is like the first civilization ever besides like Sumer and Ur. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's fair to make that comparison now. But again, that is definitely what was on people's minds back then when they learned about ancient Egypt, is how ancient Egypt compared to Europe, and also how ancient Egypt led to modern Europe. I think people were definitely grasping at straws a little, trying to find the through line from European society all the way back to ancient Egyptian civilization. I don't know if they ever found that through line, but they were definitely looking for it, especially during this time. Dang, honestly, if you ask me, these columns are even more impressive. They're like half in this wall. It's also impressive, I guess. I don't want to play favorites. It's just these columns in this one wall is really throwing me for a loop here.
The graceful form of the papyrus stem, stylized in limestone.
See, even that, like the fact that they were stylizing these columns, like you would imagine that like for the first time they ever built one of these, it would just be like the most simple blocks, like, no carvings, no intricate, details or anything. But no, they went all out. Like they had stylized columns day one, like that's what's so amazing about this. Obviously, they didn't actually have it day one, but they just, like, Egyptian society and culture was already so old by the time they made this first temple that they already had this, like, art iconography to use. It really is just unthinkable. Like, how many times must they have built columns before coming up with this, stylistic version of them? Like, I can't imagine they actually made this on their first try, Like, there must have been so many more earlier temples that did not use this elaborate of carving techniques, but we just haven't found them or something. It's just like, I don't know. It's hard to believe that like Egyptians just came out swinging with this sort of artistry day one. Maybe they did though. Maybe Imhotep was a real person and he came up with all of this. And they still look so good. 5,000 years later, they still look like perfectly carved. Oh man.
The ancient stonemasons did their work to perfection, each stone individually shaped to fit.
Yeah, again, like the decorative aspects are impressive, but probably what's actually more impressive is just the construction technique used that allowed these structures to stand for so long. Like, you look at these bricks, look how tightly they fit together. It really is like just a marvel to be studied.
Without the use of mortar. A wall, a third of a mile.
Yeah, like look how tall this wall is. No mortar holding these bricks together. They are just stacked so well that they've stood up for 5,000 years almost. Wild. I could not build a wall that would stay up longer than like a year. So the fact that these guys did it with like nothing, with just the most basic tools is just so mind-blowing to me.
Length, with all the beauty which we associate with the best in modern architecture.
Yeah, and like just the scale of what they did. Like they didn't just build like one column. Like look at this. Like you can see all of the columns they built for all of this, all the way down here even. Like, and it was finished at one point. It wasn't just like ruins when it first got started, Like, oh man, it's just, I know it seems like I'm just learning about ancient Egypt for the first time, but the truth is that like this is always my reaction to ancient Egypt. Like this is why ancient Egypt is like cooler than anything else in the world to me, is because of like just how old it is and just how fully formulated their like cultural iconography was even this early. Like the fact that they knew how to build these structures and how to make them look nice all the way back then. It's amazing. We're not doing an amazing counter on this one though. On the very first time I recorded this, I asked the editor to do an amazing counter of how many times I said amazing. And I think it got up to like 60 or something. So I'm trying my hardest not to say it too much this time. But you know what? I've also already said it a bunch. So, for what it's worth, like I've already seen this whole program and it's still amazing me. Like that's just goes to show how amazing the works of the ancient Egyptians really is.
A false door is the portal of the underworld. The tombs
Oh wow, this is sick too.
of the nobles depict the life of the times and are not wanting in gaiety.
They're not wanting in gaiety. Again, like the language the narrator used is so funny, but it's true. It's like this is pretty fun, pretty funny. Like the fact that they were just depicting each other, like having these fun little dance parties or swim parties or whatever. It is just it's such a human thing to depict,
The beliefs of the Old Kingdom envisioned the hereafter as a continuation of the more pleasant aspects of earthly existence. Pharaoh was surrounded by a glittering court of aristocratic nobles and military leaders. The general...
See, this is even more wild. Not only do we have like their countenance preserved in stone, but we actually have like the painted, decorated wooden exteriors of their sarcophagi, which give us a much better idea of what these people looked at. Like, look at this guy. Like, this looks like just an average guy, Like, his mustache, his little like hair and everything. Like, they just look like such normal people. Like, it's hard to empathize with a stone face, but when you see them painted in like flesh-like colors like this, it actually makes them feel human, Like it's easy to think of like a giant stone statue as just like an old symbol, but seeing actual people depicted like this, it just makes you realize that like everything was just people back then too. It's still just so crazy to see a person who was probably 5,000 years old depicted so realistically still. Like this is just pretty much exactly probably what he looked like.
Hotep and his lady gaze
or at the very least, this is probably exactly what these carvings looked like 5,000 years ago. Like I don't think these have actually aged at all.
across the void of time with...
Dang, and look at his woman too. That's so funny. Oh man, you could write a whole paper on the racial aspect of this all too. I'm not going to go into it because these are ancient Egyptians, but it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating that they bothered, like they were knowledgeable enough to like address the racial differences, like they painted them different colors, They knew that there were racial differences. I don't know if that's how they would have thought about them, but it's so interesting to see them paying attention to these aspects of humanity, even all the way back then. And the fact that this guy had a mustache too is just freaking hilarious.
The infinite wisdom and calm of the ages.
Like you think of a mustache as just like a modern form of like, I don't know, fashion or like facial hair, but it's really not apparently. Like the very first Egyptian mummy had a mustache. It's just like I don't know, it's such a great detail. This isn't the very first Egyptian mummy or anything, but it's so fascinating to see that one of the only ones that has been this well preserved does have a mustache. Look at those eyes. Look how shining the eyes are still. It's just, it's amazing. It's amazing craftsmanship in everything. I might say amazing more than 60 times in this recording now that I'm thinking about it.
A jeweled collar will brighten the journey into the land of the dead.
Man, these are some cool shots of the hieroglyphics too. I feel like I'm wasting so much time just pointing out how cool every shot is, but it really is.
The swamps.
Again, am I the only one just like amazed by all of these carvings? Like, look at this goose. Like, it just looks like a goose, Like, I can recognize this as a goose even now, 5,000 years later.
Of paradise reflect the struggle of nature.
And the carving just seems so complex because you have these parallel lines that are like grooved into it, but then you have the carvings amongst these lines. It's so impressive. I don't even know how you do this in several steps, Like maybe you do the lines last and you do the carvings first, but even then it seems like so much planning went into each of these little, I don't know, images. I'm forgetting what word I have to be using for them. There's like a very specific word, like a cartouche almost. I don't think these are exactly cartouches, but I think that's the word that might be applied sooner or later.
As on earth.
Yeah, some amazing animals being depicted here. And this is, again, like showing us what the Nile ecosystem was like before humans had lived in it for 4,000 or 5,000 years. At the point of these carvings being made, you can kind of assume that the Nile hadn't been totally destroyed yet. Like you can imagine now, agriculture has existed along the Nile for so long that so much of the natural environment has been removed. But at this point, they still very much had wild aspects of the Nile River. So it's amazing to see not only how they depicted the animals, but what animals they depicted as being, in their immediate vicinity, because they probably don't exist in the same place anymore. I don't think you have as many hippos or crocodiles in the Nile today as you had back then. Obviously, you still have some, but what I'm trying to say is that this is just such a good preservation of the ecology of the early Nile Delta. Like you don't think about that. You don't think that these people actually made record of the animals that were there, but that's exactly what we're looking at right now. Oh, like look at these. Like these are some really cool ducks, geese, whatever they are. Again, perfect depictions of geese though. Like there's no hint that these come from 4,000 years ago. You would say like this is a pretty good drawing of a geese nowadays, or a goose nowadays. Are they geese or are they ducks? Can the narrator just freaking tell us something for once? Holy moly. See, I think Ray just got that footage and wanted to include it, but he didn't actually want to write it into the script, so he just put it in the edit and didn't mention it at all in the narration. It's so wild to think that somebody wrote this and filmed it all too. It's just like knowing that, I'm trying to understand his process in the making of this.
The huge exterior tombs in pyramid form began with the step pyramid at Saqqara and now progressed to that of Meidum.
Oh, I know this pyramid too. This is like another very notable Egyptian pyramid. I mean, I guess it's a kind of redundant to say, but it's just like this pyramid specifically, or this tomb, I guess, it's not a pyramid, is a very notable tomb in ancient Egypt. I wish I could explain how, but you know what? I'm just going to let Michael Caine do that for us. Oh wow, no explanation. All right, we just got a few shots of it and now we're moving on. So this is the Bent Pyramid, another notable pyramid in ancient Egypt. But this one has a little bit of a funny story to it. This is like the first attempt at making like a perfectly smooth pyramid, but they didn't get it right, so they had to change the angle of it halfway through. It's just like this is a monument to like the humanity of building structures like this, that you can just get it wrong halfway through.
The bent pyramid of Dashur is unique in design, a true pyramid for half its height. The upper portion cuts in at a shallower angle. Near Dashur stands the earliest geometrically true pyramid.
Near Dashur? Oh, that's interesting. I thought this was near Saqqara. Maybe it still is. But I just thought these were all in and around Saqqara.
On the plateau of Giza, we find the full flowering of pyramid.
Okay, so now we're kind of just speed running all the pyramids, right? That was some of the important early steps in pyramid building, and now we're already at the Great Pyramids of Giza. So we kind of just skipped a few thousand years of pyramid history there. But you know what? We're doing a good job still. We're still learning about pyramids, so I'd say we're winning.
Tomb construction.
Again, this is the pyramid that everyone always thinks is the Great Pyramid, but it's not. It's the other one. It's probably the one that we're about to see. Everyone thinks that's the Great Pyramid because it's in the center and it has that iconic finished top to it. But no, it's not actually as tall as this one.
And the mightiest of all, the Great Pyramid of Cheops.
The Great Pyramid of Cheops? That's funny because I know this as the Great Pyramid of Khufu. I think that's his name, right? The Great Pyramid of Khufu. And this could be referring to the same person. It's just like Cheops is probably an older and antiquated way of pronouncing that name or reading that name. Like I feel like Khufu is since replaced Cheops, or at least, I don't know, that's what I imagine. But I know this is the Pyramid of Khufu. So Cheops must have been just an old version of that name. This is Khufu's pyramid, and then the one right next to it was Khafra's pyramid, if I'm correct. And then I forget who made the third smaller one.
One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Here, great blocks of stone were used, weighing several tons each.
Yeah, I wish we had like a human next to these so that we could see the scale, because without a human, they kind of just look like bricks. But these are absolutely tremendous blocks.
Stones which could not be raised by muscle power alone. The engineering principles of ramps, rollers, and levers were employed in this stupendous architectural feat. The upper courses of stone originally rested almost 500 feet above the base.
Again, look how tight the seal between these two rocks is, too. It's just amazing that they were able to get this level of accuracy all the way back then.
The mighty works of the 4th dynasty are an indication of a very strong centralized government.
Yeah, I guess that's the big takeaway from the pyramids, isn't it? Is that they exemplified just how powerful the government was during that period. If they were able to get those pyramids finished, then they must have had a stranglehold on the people.
Daughter of a king, wife of a king, mother of a king.
Dang, now we're looking at chairs. Holy moly, look at these. These look like modern chairs. I know they're not, but it looks like they're made out of plastic. You know, like seeing a material used like this, in my mind, rings like plastic. But obviously they didn't use plastic. That just makes it all the more impressive that they were able to use materials like wood or stone. I don't know what this is. It's probably gilded wood that they were able to use to make look like this. Again, amazing craftsmanship for the time that this all took place in.
Queen Hetepheres.
Like, look how ornate the leg of this chair is. See, that's the thing. I don't even have chairs this ornate. So the fact that ancient Egyptians had chairs that were this fancy, it's just mind-boggling. Like, there were people richer than I am now in ancient Egypt to afford this, you know? It's just so wild to me.
The great lady of the Old Kingdom. Her tomb furniture made of wood encased with pure gold.
Oh, it is made out of wood encased in pure gold. I guess that's less impressive because I've already watched this, but I'm proud of myself for remembering that.
As the beauty of the gentle curve and the serene straight line.
Yeah, like look at this. This does look like fake plastic, you know? Like if I saw this in the real world, I would not think wood and gold. Of course, that just makes it all the more impressive that it actually is. And it looks just so good and smooth, and it's so much gold. See, that's the other thing. It's like, how did they get so much gold back then? Just to be putting on chairs, you know? And obviously they knew gold was valuable, or obviously they thought gold was valuable because they put it on everything as well. So not only did they think it was valuable, but they had enough of this valuable substance to do this sort of stuff with it. It is wild. Oh my gosh.
Hetepheres, mother of Cheops.
Again, like, yeah, your richest people nowadays don't even have chairs this lavish, you know? Like this, I guess this might have been like for the pharaoh or something, but like this is a really opulent set of chairs.
Led a long life of imperial splendor. Fine linen was hung from the bed canopy, suspended from these slender hooks.
See, like, even the hooks, you know, like, these hooks just look so modern, you know? Like, you would never imagine an ancient Egyptian bed frame would ever have just, like, hooks built into them so that you could hang your linen thing around it. It's just, like, that feels so modern. So to see them have, like, not only the same exact things, but to have these, like, thought out little extra hooks so that you can hold the linen or whatever. I guess it just illustrates like how well thought out these pieces of art were by the ancient Egyptians, and how it's not even art to them, how these were just functional objects that needed to like actually accomplish something. This needed to actually hold the linen up around the bed, and it's so amazing to see them thinking with that level of complexity and lavishness all the way back then. This is not only a wooden bed frame, but it's also a gold-trimmed wooden bed frame, you know? Like, look at these hooks. I know, like, I don't know if I'm the only one who's having my mind blown by these hooks alone. They look like a piece of modern manufacturing, you know? The fact that they had the forethought to put these in and then like do everything else, it's just, I don't know. It's so revealing as to like the intelligence that even the ancient Egyptians built with.
The Dowager Queen often rode about the palace grounds in a royal carrying.
Dowager Queen? Who are we talking about exactly? Did they say? Did I miss that? Or do we just not know exactly who we're talking about? What queen? Are we talking about Hatshepsut? You know, who? Again, what a lavish chair. It doesn't look very comfortable, but man, is it made out of gold, you know? I would gladly display this in my house as like a statement piece. It's so amazing that they had such objects of opulence back then.
Letters of gold spell
Look
out.
at the little the little hieroglyphs. They make a little like emoji face, one of them. Like the half circle with the two circles above it. It's that's pretty funny.
Legend.
I wonder if ancient Egyptians ever thought this looked like a
Of the
face
legend.
too.
Mother of the king of Upper and Lower Egypt.
Mother of the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. Interesting. So we are learning here, this is.
Follower of Horus. Guide of the ruler.
This is the one that I thought looked like a face. This little open eye, winky eye, open mouth thing. That the ancient Egyptians totally also thought that was a face, right?
Favorite lady whose every word is done for her.
But man, look at the detail of some of these. Like, it's crazy how one is just like an L or like a 7 or whatever, and then another letter is just like this perfectly displayed goose. Like, these letters aren't of equal difficulty to write.
Daughter of his body. Hetepheres.
Oh wow, this actually is somebody's face. That's really funny. So all that fancy stuff was for the mother of the pharaoh? That's interesting too. I guess probably the common people were not sitting in golden chairs like that, but the fact that they had golden chairs at all is still amazing.
The origin of the Sphinx, carved out of the living rock, was lost in ancient times.
That's so funny to think about, that the origin of the Sphinx was just lost. Like, they didn't actually know how this thing came to be. It's just, again, that's another funny part of history, that you can just lose parts of it at the same time. Like, you can have this huge monument to its own existence and yet, like, not understand it in the least. Honestly, I still don't know if we know how they really did this. It seems crazy that there was a sandstone cliff in this shape right here, right? Like it seems like they must have done a lot of carving to get this shape out of the rock. It's so amazing that they had something here to even carve in the first place. It really is an amazing an amazing monument.
The body was swallowed by the sea of sand, and the huge head...
Wow, and this is a good shot of it too. Very few shots, I feel like, actually convey the scale of the Sphinx. But seeing it from this angle, from a little bit further back, you can actually sense that this is like a mountain that it's carved on, you know?
It was worshipped as the god of dawn, and thought to hold the answer to the mystery of life itself.
Yeah, if I saw this, like, even 200 years ago, I would also just be mesmerized. I would still be mesmerized today, but I would not even understand, like, the history of this thing if I saw this 200 years ago. Like, this really is so impressive, even by today's standards.
It was believed that someday the...
And these are some really good shots of it, to be honest. Like, I've seen lots of shots of the Sphinx, trust me, and these are some good shots.
stone lips would part, and this inscrutable monster give the answers to the problems of mankind. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair.
That's so funny. He just quoted Percy Shelley's poem because I guess the Sphinx is a good illustration of that poem. It's just, if you know that poem, which probably all of you do, I guess it is an accurate use of that poem.
Nothing beside remains.
That was a reading of Ozymandias. I feel like I need to convey to the audience that I knew where that passage came from. Percy Shelley.
Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless...
Again, this is just another good shot. Did Ray Garner really purposefully set up this shot so that a cloud would cover the Sphinx and it would plunge it into darkness? Like, is that a planned shot, or did he just wait there all day for a cloud to come? Or is it just a lucky coincidence that a cloud came at all? Like the fact that he got a shot of the Sphinx entering total darkness with everything else around it staying the same is just amazing. It's just like, I don't know. Shout out to freaking Ray Garner for getting that shot. Holy moly.
Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare.
Like, was that on purpose? It looks like it actually is in the shade. Like, it doesn't look like this is a film trick or anything. It looks like they actually filmed it while it was in the shade. I don't know if that's true or not, but again, it's just like, how do you make that happen if it doesn't happen? You can't. So the fact that he got it on film is just impressive.
The lone and level sands.
Like, talk about right place, right time, Like, you couldn't have gotten that shot if you'd asked nature for it. But because he was here filming, he just got that shot. It's just, I don't know if anyone else appreciates these shots as much as I do.
Stretch far away.
Again, with the pyramid in the background, too, such a good shot. Freaking shout out to Ray. And then, what's impressive too is he's getting all sorts of different shots. So he either must have had like different lenses that he was putting on, or he must have been getting like really close to this Sphinx's face. But I think this must have been like a zoom lens he was using. It makes it even more impressive that not only was he operating a film camera during this time, but he was switching out lenses and he was getting every shot as perfectly as he could. It's very impressive that only one person was credited with the photography for this. And it's the same person who wrote it and directed it as well. Dang, that's a pretty cool door right there, too. Is that real? Is there like an actual huge stone door just right in front of the Sphinx? I feel like even though I've learned about the Sphinx so many times in my life, I still just like barely understand how these archaeological sites work. Like, is there something under the Sphinx? Is that what that door is to? Like, is there a temple under there? That'd be sick, the temple under the Sphinx.
On the body of a lion, the proud head of Khephren, the son of Cheops, and built...
Khephren, the son of Cheops? That might be who Khafra is? I don't know. I think these are just antiquated pharaoh names. I'm pretty sure Khufu and Khafra are the accepted names of the people who the pyramids were built for now. I hope I'm not making myself look like an idiot by suggesting this.
Builder of the second pyramid keeps eternal vigil over the valley of the Nile.
Again, we can feel like Ray is just flipping through all his different shots because he got more than he needed, so he just wants to show them all. That's why it feels like we're just seeing a shot and then we're seeing another one like 1 second after. It feels like he's showing us all the shots that he got just so that he can say he used them.
Much of the royal sculpture is formal and stylized.
Oh wow, this is really amazing too. Just this like white marble stone. Oh man, I'm excited for this.
But in these portrait heads, we see the true face of ancient Egypt.
See, that's the truth too, is like the sarcophagus or the heads on top of the sarcophagi might not be like the most accurate, but when you get down to statues like these, where their very purpose was to imitate life, you start to get the sense that you actually are looking at like what this person looked like, which is just amazing that you can look at like a 4,000, 5,000-year-old person and understand what they were like when they were alive. These are just some of the most amazing statues to ever have been made.
Curiously like the mingled races of our own time.
Right, like you can tell exactly what this guy looked like. Like I guarantee you he looked something like this. Like obviously it's not perfect, but like he definitely looked like this.
These portraits of nobles were placed in the tombs to assure a permanent home for the...
And it's also wild, like the variation in how they look, you know, like all these are royals, but they don't look like they're one weird inbred family, you know, like this guy has a completely different nose and jaw than the previous guy.
Ka, or spirit, in case the mummy was destroyed.
Dang, but look at this though. Besides his like bulging head, I bet this is like a perfectly accurate rendition of what this guy looked like. Like the lips, the nose, like you can just tell like innate features of these people from these carvings. It's so impressive the details that they were able to include that convey the same information they convey now, you know?
During the reign of Cheops...
Again, look at this guy's nose. Completely different than the other two people's nose. And that's what I'm saying. It's like they were just like different sorts of people back then.
Cheops and his immediate descendants, sculpture in the round reached its peak and was never again surpassed in Egyptian art.
Isn't that wild that they were like, these are some of the earliest carvings and also some of the best. Like people didn't even bother trying after they knew what had already been accomplished, you know?
Home for the Ka, or spirit, in case the mummy was destroyed.
So yeah, people needed these to be as accurate as possible so that they would have the chance of recognizing them in spirit form when they went off to the underworld, which is very interesting. It's such a nice coincidence that the Egyptian people believed that they had to depict themselves realistically or else they wouldn't go to heaven, because that has left us now with so many records of what they looked like, you know? Like, it's just a happy coincidence that they thought that they needed to do this, and I guess they are having an afterlife in us studying them as a result. It's funny to think that like they put so much effort into making these look real for their afterlife, and now they actually are living some form of an afterlife in our history books. It is wild. I don't know. Like, I doubt that's why they wanted to make them so accurate. They obviously didn't want their like heads to be in a museum somewhere, but it is the reason that we find them interesting now.
During the reign of Cheops and his immediate descendants...
Is this Cheops? Is that what this is suggesting? Is by showing us this while talking about Cheops, this is the guy who the Great Pyramid is built after? I hope that's true.
Sculpture in the round reached its peak and was never again surpassed in Egyptian art.
Dang, look at this. So this is like a wooden mask. See, this is more like what I expected for the oldest forms of Egyptian burial ceremony, but I think this is saying that it came after. This is a really freaky mask, though. I will say that. I understand why Egyptians didn't carve things like that very much afterwards. Like, this actually looks like a real living person wearing a mask or something. Like, these eyes are so lifelike that it really looks like a person who's, like, rotting to death or something. It's a bizarre mask, that's for sure. Oh, this is some of the coolest stuff, though. These, like, polished black stones. These are, like, the coolest sculptures ever.
Diorite, one of the hardest materials.
Diorite. See, exactly. Like the stone itself is so hard. You get such an interesting texture and like feel off of these stones. These are some of the most impressive works of art ever still.
Here holds King Khephren in regal dignity.
Yeah, like look how shiny this rock is. Like this was polished, you know? It wasn't just like sanded down. Like this, somebody like worked on it to get it to be this smooth and like, oh man, and if you ever see them in person, you know they have this like amazing looking texture to them.
Many gods of ancient Egypt manifested themselves in animal form. The hawk god, Horus, was destined to remain a chief deity up to the Christian era.
Isn't part of Jesus based on Horus too? Hasn't Horus kind of lived on even into the modern day? I don't know if I should say that or suggest that, but I think that's still true. It's a wild to see that Horus is one of like the longest lasting gods of human history.
He represented the forces of good against evil.
Oh wow, this is incredible too. Look how like, oh man, look at the light coming through this. This must be like really small. Is this like made out of a crystal too? This is like, again, this is what's so amazing about ancient Egyptian craftsmanship. It's just like how minute details they were able to get out of such like fragile substances.
Fifth dynasty, the governors of the individual provinces began to assume some of Pharaoh's control. Under Pepi I of the Sixth.
Pepi I, was he the longest lived pharaoh or was that Pepi II? I know one of the Pepis lived longer than any other pharaoh, I think.
Dynasty, this process continued. Pepi II began his reign on the lap of...
Look at this. I love how they used to depict babies, though. It's just like a full-grown man, but tiny. Like, that's what this is showing, is like Pepi II on his mother's lap as a kid. But he's already like a full-grown man with a crown and everything. It's hilarious.
...of his queen mother and ruled for 94 years.
But again, look at the light coming through this rock right here. Like, you can tell this is some sort of like quartz crystal or something that they carved into, some sort of transparent rock that they were able to carve with such detail still. It's so amazing.
Toward the end of his fabulous regime, political disintegration set in. Egyptian fought Egyptian, and the local governors no longer held allegiance to the crown. Egypt became...
Are these little like dolls or action figures, are these real too, or are these like replicas or something? Because this would be really impressive if these are just like little clay or wooden figurines, probably wooden carved figurines that are painted. This really is just amazing.
...became a series of small states.
I wonder how many times I've said that now. I wonder if it's more or less than the first time I watched this.
...struggling against themselves. Thus was brought to a close the great glory of the old king.
See, I've never even heard of all these little figurines. Like, I feel like I've learned enough about ancient Egyptian history to be able to say, like, this is not a well-known thing within, like, ancient Egypt, or at least I've never heard of them. I don't know how tall they are, but this seems like a really cool thing to have displayed somewhere in a museum. I want to see them, like, I want to see what scale these things are at, you know?
In the 11th dynasty, the river was again a unifying factor. The lands along the Nile became one again. And
the 11th dynasty, that's what's so crazy, is like that's only like halfway through Egyptian history and like 11 dynasties already. It's just like there were so many just like periods, so many eras of different power in Egypt. It's like it's so hard to fathom how long Egyptian history was.
Commerce flourished.
These, again, are some amazing depictions of, like, early Egyptian life and people. It's just, this must be real. This is no way like a replica or anything. It's just, it's so wild to see how they depicted themselves. It's so human, you know? That's really what it is. It really just reminds you that, like, anyone who made this and worked on this or was depicted in this was just, like, an average person still. They weren't, like, none of them knew that they were in ancient Egypt, you know? But I'm also curious what the point of all these like dolls on this boat are. Like, was this for like a funeral thing or something? Like, I don't know. I don't know what the purpose. It kind of looks like a fun playset almost. Like, I give this to a kid and I bet they'd have a blast.
The gods of Upper and Lower Egypt bind together the lotus and papyrus, symbols of the two lands. Mentuhotep II regained firm control and ushered in the Middle Kingdom.
Mentuhotep, see, dang, so I can barely even see like the detail on this sculpture. I wonder if he was really like this dark in real life, or if this is just like this type of stone that it's carved out of or something. It seems like they painted his hat, so it kind of seems like they painted his skin dark as well. I can't see any of the detail because of that, but I'm curious. I'm curious what this guy actually looked like.
There was a rebirth of formal art in tomb decoration of great beauty.
It's also amazing that this sort of art style stayed alive for almost the entirety of Egyptian history. You know, like this two-dimensional, like, I don't know. It's very simple, but obviously, like, they're the only people who ever really drew like this. Obviously, every culture has its own art styles, but it's amazing that this is recognizably Egyptian and will always be, because they always maintained this same sort of style. Besides Akhenaten, I guess.
On her limestone sarcophagus, Princess Kawit has her hair dressed by an attendant.
See, even little details like this, that's what makes these so interesting, is that they included the detail that this woman had like a servant to like do her hair for her. Like, and not only that they had a servant to do their hair, but that was so important that they carved the servant doing their hair into stone. You know, like that's the interesting part, is not only that they had servants, but they thought of them as so important that they also included them in like their most important carvings ever, you know? Like it's just so amazing. Like, you would think on your limestone sarcophagus, you would want to be portrayed as being like ready, or like having your hair already done real nice, but no, they actually depicted her getting her hair done as the aspect of her wealth. You know, like, it's not her hair being done that illustrates her being wealthy. It's having a servant do her hair that illustrates her wealth. And so that is why you put something like that on your sarcophagus, you know, is so that you can illustrate how rich you were. Humans never change, I guess, is the lesson from this. Like, imagine being remembered 5,000 years later for how well you braided your queen's hair. It's just unthinkable. It's so crazy.
Has her hair dressed by an attendant.
And oh man, look at the detail on the fingers too. It's so interesting. I really wish I could spend like hours dissecting this.
A polished bronze mirror reflects her vanity.
Dang, see, oh man, a polished bronze mirror too. That's something that I just feel like I don't actually expect ancient people to have had access to, is mirrors, right? It seems so simple, but it's also like, well, how do you even make a mirror back then? I want to see a polished bronze mirror. I want to know what that actually looked like, because I doubt it looked like a perfect mirror nowadays. You know, like, you must have been able to see your reflection, but it probably was not like perfectly clear. So can somebody just find me what a polished bronze mirror actually looks like? I just want to know for like self-reference sake, you know?
Provisions are made for life.
But it's also so funny how the aspects of this queen that were worth like preserving were the fact that she got her hair done and that she had a mirror to look at. You know, like, of all the things that make like a woman feel important in this world, those are the ones that they put on her sarcophagus, you know? It's so funny. It's so illustrative of like the perfect human condition that still exists.
Provisions are made for life in the hereafter. While the cow is milked, the calf is denied.
Oh wow, so this is actually a pretty interesting carving. These cows, I'm not very familiar with seeing animals displayed like this in hieroglyphics. Like, obviously I'm used to seeing people and whatnot, but just seeing like a cow like this is pretty, I don't want to say unheard of, but it's unfamiliar for me.
While
while the cow
Wow,
is...
look at this guy milking the cow, though. You can see he puts it in this little sack, this little, like, bladder sack or something. Like, that's, what an amazing little piece of technology that's been preserved through these carvings, is now we understand how they used to milk cows. Again, incredible that they were even milking cows back then, and they had little whole methods for it. It's all so wild.
Milk, the calf is denied. And the mother...
Again, yeah, like the fact that they bothered depicting the calf being denied even. Like, I would imagine this would take so long to make that, like, it had to be really important if you wanted to carve it in stone. Maybe not. Maybe this could have been carved in, like, an afternoon or something, but, like, it still seems like a lot of work.
Mother sheds a formal tear.
And a lot of, just a lot of thought seems to be put into these animal carvings. Like this cow with its tear. What does the tear mean? I bet he explained it a second ago.
Provisions are made for life in the hereafter. While the cow is milked, the calf is denied, and the mother sheds a formal tear.
So the calf is denied while the mother is milked, the calf is denied. So are they like sacrificing the calf in this like burial tomb or something? Is that why the mom is crying? I don't quite understand. It seems like that's what they're suggesting, though, is that, like, they're milking this cow, but they're not giving the milk to the calf. So they're probably sacrificing it, and the cow is crying because of it? I don't know. That's just my read on it. I also really like just how many letters of the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs were just birds. You know, like a bird made a different sound so that you would write a bird for a different sound. And then, I don't know, it's interesting to think that birds made different sounds like that.
The eyes of the dead stare into the world of the living.
Wow, you know, I've never really seen the Eye of Horus depicted, like, symmetrically like this. Like, I've only ever seen this eye, like, halfways. Like, never seen them both next to each other like this. Like, this is a weird front-on angle of Horus, I guess.
The 12th dynasty continued this period of prosperity and conquest. Sesostris the first ruled...
Sesostris? I feel like that's another very notable name in Egyptian history. Sesostris. I feel like Trey the Explainer made a video about Sesostris. Didn't they build like a big pyramid or something? There's like some mythical thing attached to Sesostris. I know that much.
The two lands in 1960 BC. The names of Egyptian rulers are enclosed in this characteristic oval. The royal cartouche of Sesostris.
Oh, the royal cartouche. See, I'm proud of myself for coming up with that word.
Sesostris the first.
So this was the pharaoh's name, I guess, was like sun, circle, beetle, hands up kind of thing. I don't know. That's interesting. I really hope that is the cartouche for Sesostris, though.
Royal jewelry reached a high standard of...
See, this is what I'm talking about, though. Like, all that stone carving, that was real interesting and all. But this sort of jewelry, look how freaking ornate this is. Like, how do you make something this complex and small all the way back then? I don't understand. Like, all the little gemstones that they fit into all the little shapes everywhere. It's just so incredible the way they managed to produce this sort of stuff. Again, this necklace is nicer than any necklace I've seen any girl in my whole life wearing, you know? Like, this is 1,000 times cooler than anything. Sorry to say. Sorry, men and women combined also. I don't mean to call that women. It's just like, if I saw a woman wearing this sort of necklace, I would give her mad respect instantly, you know? It's just like, this is so cool. It's such a cool piece of jewelry, too. It's like, it's so ornate. It's just so amazing that they made this thousands of years ago. Like, look at these snakes and the little things going through the ankhs and whatnot. Like, oh my gosh, it's so impressive. I couldn't make this today.
Magnificent monuments were erected during his reign.
Magnificent monuments as they show us on screen what looks like just a one-room house. I bet this is a pretty impressive monument. It just doesn't look like it. It's just like, it's funny how this is the thing that they showed when they said impressive monuments.
Such as this shrine dedicated to the god Amun.
It is pretty cool up close though, all these carvings. Oh, here it is again. Wasn't that the cartouche? The sun with the beetle and the hands. Is that the same guy? Is this Sesostris again? Or is that just like a pharaoh's cartouche, you know? I don't know. Oh no, here it is again. There's the circle with the beetle and the hands. This one's sideways. Oh, there's one up here too. All right, that is totally this guy's name, is the sun beetle hands guy. Sesostris, I guess. And these are some great carvings too. It's, oh, you know what? I've spoken too much about how impressive these carvings are to keep going, but every single one of these shots I want to stop and pay attention to. Like these eagles or these falcons holding these ankhs, like, oh man, so impressive, so cool. Thanks, so that was all we get to see from this little temple thing? That's fine.
Amenemhat III carried out great irrigation projects in the Fayum.
In the Fayum? So that's interesting. So is that like, if you know Egyptian geography, which I do because I spent my whole childhood drawing maps of ancient Egypt, the Fayum is like the little lake that sits off to the side of the River Nile. I'm curious to see what they have to say about that.
Fury of the unchecked waters during inundation had to be controlled. A great reservoir and a complicated series of canals were excavated.
Dang, really? So the Fayum, so they're suggesting that the Fayum, that huge reservoir, was man-dug, or at least partially man-dug, and that canals were dug to fill it up with water. If the Fayum is like an actually man-made structure, that would be amazing. I never really knew that.
No longer was the Nile a fickle monster, but the controlled servant of the people who dwelt along its banks.
Wow, that's incredible. If this pharaoh actually ordered the construction of the Fayum, that is a notable achievement in Egyptian history even. Because that's pretty much a huge body of water right next to the Nile that has water even when the Nile flow lowers, like there's still water in El Fayum. So that's just a fascinating thing. I didn't know that. I mean, I guess I learned that once before by watching this, but again, it's so shocking. I still don't even know if I believe it.
This grand-scale project was carried to fulfillment with this simple type of hoe, and countless tons of earth were moved in tiny baskets.
With this simple type of hoe, is that what he's saying? Oh, so the hoe that this guy is holding right now, that's how they dug those canals to the Fayum. See, I would believe that the Fayum was a depression that they dug canals to fill, but I would not believe that they actually dug the Fayum out and filled it with water. That just seems like too large a scale of a project for even the ancient Egyptians. They might have dug out parts of it, but I think that whole area is still just a natural depression.
The nobles decorated the portals and facades of their tombs with sunken relief.
See, again, sunken relief. That's what makes this so impressive, is that like they carved into the rock. So impressive. Dang, look at their dogs too. See, that's again, like part of the humanity is just understanding the lives that these ancient Egyptians lived in and seeing their depictions of their own dogs. Like these look like regular dogs even. You know what I'm saying? Like people who lived in ancient Egypt had very comparable lives to us, it feels like, based on what I've seen. They had chairs, they had mirrors, they had dogs, they had servants braiding their hair. It's like, it's all the same as modern human society, really. Look at this dog. See, incredible. Like, looks exactly like your dog right now, you know?
The colorful birds of Beni Hassan fly through the
Oh, wow, this is awesome.
fly through the heavens in the afterworld as in life.
Wow, this is an amazing piece of art. Again, like, what is this piece of art made on? Is this like another piece of wood that has paint on it? Or what is it? Because how has it been preserved so well? Like, these colors, it really is amazing. Like I was talking about earlier, how a lot of this art is just preserving the natural environment of the Nile Delta before humans utterly destroyed it. And this, is, again, offers us a glimpse into the rich bird fauna that existed here all those thousands of years ago.
In the ensuing...
And, you know, these birds might still be around this delta to this day, but they're definitely not in as great of numbers as they were back then. So it really is amazing to see, like, the ancient Egyptians' perception of the wild animals.
millennia, man will spend his years in struggle and strife.
And these are just so beautiful, too. I really wish there was, like, a poster I could buy of this, because this is, like, modern art still.
Millions of humans will fall before the wrath of their brethren. The forces of nature will alter the face of the earth. but the wild...
Like, are these ancient Egyptian drawings, or is this like from another era or something and I'm just being fooled? Because these are like so amazing. Like the color, the detail, it's all really impressive. This just does not feel like it's as old as the rest of the stuff we've been looking at. But you know what? It could be. It really could be.
Remain unchanged. The birds of Beni Hassan fly in the skies of today.
Oh wow, look at this too. See, again, even more, that's what this whole video is going to be, isn't it? It's just me calling things impressive for like an hour straight. You know, but there's nothing else I can call this hippo besides impressive. Like, it's a very cool looking piece of art.
The artist delicately suggests the hippo's swamp habitat.
Like, not only is it a carved hippo, but then it has all these like illustrations or designs on it that also carry their own meaning in the Egyptian world. You know, it's so ornate, it's so complex, it's so meaningful. I guess that's probably what it is. This is such a meaningful little item or totem or something that like is completely lost on me. But I'm still here trying to appreciate it just for the artistic ability alone.
Wooden bedsteads were frequently inlaid with ivory animals.
See, isn't this crazy too? A wooden bedstand is also just inlaid with ivory. And look how much ivory. This isn't just like one freaking tusk. This is a whole bunch of tusks from I don't even know what animals, probably elephants. But it's just, again, such ornate, such lavish living conditions were afforded to people like 4,000 years ago, you know? Like, again, this is higher quality than my bedstand now. So it's just so wild. It's so wild to see such luxury from so long ago. And this would only get more luxurious, you know? Like, having ivory in your bedstand, that is like uber luxury today. It's just ivory is so much rarer and so much more expensive now because it's not actually ethical to, you know, extract. So it's wild to see how freely they used this material back before they had these sorts of thoughts, you know? They're like, yeah, let's just use ivory for everything. Let's just use it to decorate, you know, a child's bed because that's the material that we have to work with. And then the little carvings are amazing too. Like the fact that these aren't just like animals, these are like animal people. Like, again, just like it takes such foresight to be able to carve this sort of stuff. Like you already have to establish the art form before you get carving. So it's really amazing to see and to imagine how many of these needed to be carved in order for this to be such a standardized procedure.
Perhaps the greatest of the monumental works of this period was the slender granite shaft called the obelisk. In the quarries of Aswan, we wonder at the engineering skill entailed in the removal of...
Oh, I know this too. This is like the obelisk that was never actually removed from its site, so you still get to see it like in the middle of being carved. This is like another very fascinating site for ancient Egypt.
Huge single pieces of granite.
Because this actually illustrates how they made these obelisks, which I think is actually more impressive than like anything else.
From the bedrock.
Because if you see, you can see that they carved 3 of the 4 sides of this obelisk, but then down on the ground, you can see that the rock for the obelisk wall just fades into the rock of the ground. So like, how did they cut the last wall? Like, that's what I want to know. Like, how did they actually separate this from the ground? Because right now, it's just entirely based in the ground.
Balls of dolerite or other hard stone were used.
Yeah, look at this. This is an even better view. So this is the wall of the obelisk, and then it just smooths out into the ground itself. So like this is very clearly attached to the ground. Only 3 walls are carved. How were they going to get the other wall off of this? Like, how are they going to cut through it on the ground? It doesn't make any sense to me, really. Which only makes the fact that they were doing it all the more impressive, too.
Used in the channeling out process. Human hands.
Oh, and they were doing it with stones like this. See, that's what I wonder though. Like, how do you get under the obelisk with just a big block that you're using? I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense.
Patiently wielded these primitive tools to reduce to dust the parts of the rock which had to be removed.
Like, I get carving out a stone face using a rock like that. Like, it's just a rock, you just bash it until it's flat. But I don't get carving the actual ground out from underneath it. It's amazing.
This giant shaft would have been the tallest of all obelisks. But a fault was discovered in the quarrying.
That's also so funny that they spent all this time making what would have been the tallest obelisk ever just for it to crack. You know, like, there's such a human story in this somewhere of somebody putting so much effort into it just for it to break for no reason. It's funny that that has been preserved in history too. You know, like that mistake that they thought was probably like so much wasted effort ended up being like the most informative thing ever when it comes to how they constructed obelisks. So, you know, sad for them, sad for the guys who had to start over, but, you know, good for us that now we understand how these things were actually made.
Process, and the project was abandoned. This staggering feat of engineering, begun at the quarry, continued on in the journey 400 miles down the Nile, reached its climax when the shaft was proudly raised before the gateway of a great temple.
Dang, that's wild. So this was being carved 400 miles away from where it was meant to be raised. That's, again, another amazing feat. It's just how they managed to move these stones on the river itself. It's all so wild.
Here indeed, art, craft, and ingenuity combine symbolically with the spirit of man, as this slender shaft of granite points its slim finger at the heavens.
Again, the language that they use. Oh man, it's this guy. It's the cartouche. It's Sun Beetle Hands. I hope it's Sesostris. I hope that's who it's talking about. I hope I can recognize this guy's name for the rest of my life too. Sun Beetle Hands. All right, that's the new like terminology for this guy.
The Middle Kingdom met its end in political disintegration and civil war.
Oh, okay, so that's the end of it. Okay, so that's the end of the Ancient World Egypt Part 1. So this was pretty good. Again, like I said, I've watched this once before, so we didn't get the best viewing out of it, but I still really enjoyed seeing this again. And actually, it was a lot more fun to watch it the second time because I really did get to just enjoy a lot of the art that I felt like I glazed over the first time I watched it. So this was good. This is actually a little worrying that I've been glazing over like every single thing I've watched, and I should actually be watching everything twice, but I don't think I'm going to do that. But it was a good time to get to watch this one more time, just so that you guys get to see it, and also that I get to feel like it's not a waste that I spent time watching this and found this and everything. I feel like this was a pretty good introduction to ancient Egypt. I know we spent a lot of time in the Ruwenzori Mountains at the start, like 10 minutes or something like that, which I don't know if that was entirely necessary. It definitely set the stage. I feel like there is a grandeur to the editing style that is lost on me in this modern age. I'm waiting for us to get to the point, but you know, part of the point is just enjoying the music and the scenery. So this is good. This was a very enjoyable watch for sure. And another reason why I wanted to make sure we watched this is so that we now get to watch part 2 later, which I'm very excited about. I haven't seen at all. I don't know what to expect. I feel like this took us through like most of early Egyptian history. It didn't really explain that much, but you know, what can you expect from something from 1951? Like this is pretty good for 1951. I mean, it's in color for Christ's sake, you know? And the fact that one person got all the photography, did all the writing and the directing, it is a really impressive documentary on ancient Egypt from, 70 years ago. It is very impressive. That's all I gotta say, really. They managed to capture such interesting visuals, and they actually went to so many interesting sites and explained to us the meaning behind them all. It really is. I'm glad we got to watch this. Again, I watched this before, but I really, really wanted you guys to get to watch it, so here we are watching it again. I'm trying to think of what else I even said when I watched this the first time. I think that's about it, though. It really is. Seeing this sort of stuff really does just remind you of the humanity that these ancient people had. And that's, I think, maybe the most important part, is that you are able to relate to somebody that lived 5,000 years ago based on the carvings left behind of them. It really is just amazing. I'm scrolling through the whole video now, just looking at it all over again, and it really is just It's amazing. Like the guy with the mustache, then all these birds and everything. It's really just infinitely fascinating, if you ask me. Just every little artifact that we've found, it just has its own story to it. Every little piece of art was made by a person with a life and everything. It's just, there's so much information in all of this. It's so interesting, and I'm glad that we got to watch it again, because this stuff deserves to be seen. Ray Garner's work especially deserves to be seen. So I'm glad we got to watch this finally. And more than that, I hope this illustrates kind of the thesis behind the yellow color group, as it's kind of history, but it's also art, you know, and that's pretty perfect for ancient Egypt, because a lot of the ways that we learn history is through ancient art. So it's kind of both history and art. And I felt like this program, more so than any of the other ones we've watched so far, did a good job of illustrating that genre, I guess, or that color video. I know the colors are just for me, but I really wanted this video to help illustrate just what the topic was for yellow videos. So going forward, just keep this video in your mind, as this is kind of the guiding light for me when I pick what videos are yellow versus green or blue or red or anything. This is like the obelisk that I attune myself to, I guess. This is the original yellow video, which, you know, I'm glad we finally got to see. And with that, if you enjoyed watching and would like to continue watching, and especially if you would like to see part 2 of the ancient world Egypt, make sure to drop a donation for the Internet Archive. That's where I get all these videos from. They deserve all the credit for this, not me. So if you want to help this channel and what I do here, go donate to the Internet Archive. And with that, I think we're just going to cut to black.